it did it again. Hey guys, Mary here for Mary's Heirloom Seeds. And YouTube was so awesome last week, and this week not so much. They made me go vertical today instead of horizontal, so if you'll give me a second, I will get situated and hope. Hey Asia Joe, thanks for joining me. Now, because I'm having to change the way my camera is set up, if you would please let me know if you can hear me. I'm going to have to kind of arrange it differently. Hi! So if you're listening to me live today, please let me know if at some point you cannot hear me. Because one time it covered up my microphone. So if you'll let me know what's going on. I'm going to have to get situated again here in just a second because I'm going to sit down. I'm standing up. I got a kitty out here. I had planned on going live inside my garden, but it's raining. So I'm going to be outside here today. So if you'll just give me a second, I need to change the orientation on my tripod, and maybe I'll have a garden kitty with me today that you may or may not have seen yet. Definitely not on YouTube. So just give me a minute. Sorry guys, you can see my wild garden here. Hi. All right. Fixed it. Hey everybody, welcome to my weekly live chat. So if you missed it, I have decided to go live on YouTube on Saturday mornings instead of Thursday evening, just for the summertime. Hey Tammy, hey Jenny, thanks for joining me. Hey Jennifer. And that is because it is way, way too hot outside right now in the garden. So I went outside, I got working in the garden a little bit, and then it started sprinkling, and then I had to come in and I got drenched. So here I am. We're going to talk about winter crops. We're going to talk about fall crops, and we're going to talk about your timing on those crops. So thank you so much for joining me. Now, today's topic is plan for fall, or prep for fall. If you haven't already, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are asked regularly for me, and I answer them regularly, but you know, it's one of those things where with so many new people growing, a lot of people, hey Stephanie, maybe have never grown a fall garden, and so that was one of the questions I asked for my current giveaway for August. By the way, if you didn't see the announcement, I've got an August giveaway. I just announced mystery grab bags. Those I've already sold half the grab bags in less than 36 hours. So if you're looking for a grab bag this month, definitely check them out. If you miss them this month, there will be a small amount available in September, but not as much probably as August. So let's talk about fall. So before I get into the specific fall crops, I'm going to talk about how we figure out what to plant and when to plant, and then we'll talk about what you're planting during that time specifically. Now, my suggestion to you is to find your first frost date. So for those of you who have never seen one of my videos on fall, this might be new information to you. If you've already seen my fall videos, it might be just a refresher course. So, for example, I use the Old Farmer's Almanac. It's easy. I enter my zip code and it tells me the estimated frost date. Now, here's the thing though. Your frost dates change all the time. And why do I focus on frost dates? You might be asking. Because for annuals, your zone really doesn't matter. Your frost date is more important because you might be in a zone that has multiple frost dates because it's a large chunk. So if you're looking at specifically annuals, not perennials, you want to know when it's going to freeze in your area, where it might be a light frost or a hard freeze, to determine what to plant and when to plant. So the frost date is an estimate, your average frost date over the last 10 years. And so that's why I use the Old Farmer's Almanac, because they've already calculated it for me and I don't have to do the math on the last 10 years. So for example, my first frost date for Ben Wheeler, Texas. There's no Ben Wheeler, Texas on the map for that because we're such a small town. So they use Tyler, which is November 12th. But then Mineola, which is very close to me, that one is November 4th. So, and I had to write it down because it changed. Last year it was November 15th. So, are you going to come sit with me? So it's going to be different for your region. And so that's why when people ask me, well, do I still have time to plant this? It depends on your specific region. You might see Buster Kitty out here. There's his tail right there. Anyway, so if I calculate back from now until, say, November 4th through November 12th, I'm going to get roughly a little over 100 days until my first frost date. So your last frost date is for spring, and your first frost date is for fall. Melissa Hamilton says, for real. Oh, said hi. Hi. So as of right now, like I said, I've got a little over 100 days, maybe 101, 102 days. So quite a bit of time. But if you only have 40 to 60 days, for example, hey, Bertha, then you want to get planting now. And then there's a couple of things that you can plant now that are also frost tolerant, and I'm going to talk about that as well. Now, when I talk about frost dates, this is when you'll get a frost or a freeze, but not necessarily when it starts snowing. So you might have to backtrack a little bit of that for your specific region. And there are a couple of varieties. By the way, if you have any questions, you can always ask during the live chat. If I don't answer your question, you can always send me an email. My email is mary@marysheirloomseeds.com, and I do answer your questions. And in the description section of this video, you'll find a link to my comprehensive planting guide, which also has this fall planting information. And like I said earlier, I really wanted to go live inside my garden today. That was the plan. And I had some fall seeds that I was going to plant in my garden, but it's raining out. This was such a random rain we got last night, about a half an inch. And then the rain was supposed to have been done by now, but we've got more rain, and I'm definitely not complaining because my gardens need rain. And it's perfect timing for me to plant my fall crops after this, some of them anyway, not all of them. I planted another round of round zucchini. That can be planted as a fall crop because it's ready to harvest in as few as 40 days. So you can plant it now when it's really, really hot, and then hopefully as it starts to cool down, maybe September in your area, maybe October in your area, then maybe you'll be harvesting and it won't be so hot and humid outside. For us, it's still hot in October. Maybe not 100 degrees like it was yesterday, but it'll still be pretty warm. Maybe in the high 80s or so. So there are some crops that are light frost tolerant. And those include beets, carrots, cauliflower, onions, parsley, some peas. Bertha, yes, the round zucchini that I mentioned in a recent live chat, that is ready to harvest in as few as 40 days. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. Natasha says it's cooler out this morning and I love it so much. Me too. It is cooler out here and I am thoroughly enjoying it. I'm not sweating through everything I have on like I did last Saturday in the garden. So peas, radishes, rhubarb, rutabagas, spinach, and Swiss chard. Kale, turnips, all of those are light frost tolerant, okay? Now there are some that are more frost hardy, meaning they can withstand a little more frost than the ones that I mentioned earlier. Those are broccoli, I already mentioned cauliflower, Chinese cabbage, regular cabbage, kale I already mentioned, kohlrabi, turnips I already mentioned, and then also parsnips and Brussels sprouts. All of those are more cool or frost hardy than some of the others. That means that even if you only have, say, 60 days till your first frost, but maybe you want to plant turnips, which take 60 days plus, plant them. Maybe you want to plant kale and you only have 40 days. Plant it because it is more frost tolerant than some of the others. Brussels sprouts are a little longer maturing of a crop, say 90 to 100 days. So for me, if I wanted to plant Brussels sprouts now would be a great time, or I can wait another 10 days, 20 days even, because it's still really hot. I'm not going to plant broccoli, for example, because even though some varieties take a little longer, in my area it is so hot. Like I said, it was 100 degrees yesterday. The feels like temp was 114 when I looked at it. So broccoli, if I plant it right now, is going to bolt. So for those of you just joining me, welcome. For those of you that join me regularly, welcome back. I am outside on the patio today instead of in my garden because it's raining, and I'm so excited that we have rain. I'm definitely not complaining. All right, so I'm going to give you a list. All of this is on my website. If you look up fall planning, these are a great option. Let's see. Natasha says, broccoli, do they transfer well? Yeah, you can transplant broccoli. You can also plant, since you're in a warmer area like me, you can also plant what's called sprouting varieties. So the Calabrese and the early purple sprouting broccoli are also varieties that are ready faster because they don't give you a big head. They just give you a smaller sprout of a broccoli. I mentioned it earlier in a live chat. Spring broccoli rab. That can be planted in spring or fall. And again, those are more of a sprouting broccoli as well. All right. Can you tell? It's humid out here. My hair is a big ball of frizz. But I am thoroughly enjoying the cooler weather today. All right, so late maturing fall crops. These are 90 plus days. And so like I said earlier, you're going to take your first frost date. You're going to count back 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. You want to? And then you're going to add 10 days to that. 10 days is a little bit of wiggle room, and it also gives you time to germinate. I have a little garden. I know, curly hair struggles. I got a garden kitty now. If you've missed Buster on my regular Facebook posts, he is in the garden now, and he lets me pet him, and he follows me around in the garden. So, baby steps here. All right, so late maturing. This is approximately 90 days, and then, like I said, I add 10 to 15 days on top of that. So this is going to be carrots, parsnips, rutabagas, which actually don't take as long, onions, but the bunching onions are a really good choice for you here. And bulbing onions are good as well, depending on your area. Brussels sprouts, like I mentioned before. Heading cabbage. Now there's two types of cabbage that I discussed, and that's a heading cabbage and a non-heading cabbage. And most of the non-heading cabbage I discussed is going to be Chinese cabbage, like pak choi, dwarf pak choi, Michelihi cabbage. Those are non-heading cabbages, and they take less time. But your heading cabbage are usually 80 to 100 days. I mentioned Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and then some peas can take longer. They're about 75 days, so I lump them in with the 90 days. And then you also want to be able to have time to harvest, but those are some of your longer. I might pick them up. I don't normally pick them up, so there's that. Bubbles and Cashmere says, you are so awesome. Thank you for going live so we can learn. Well, thank you. Now, if you've missed my Facebook lives, every Wednesday I'm live on Facebook. And those are less in the garden as they are seeds. So oh, there he is. So I decided to share specific information about different unique varieties on my Facebook page. Problem with that is Facebook started deleting my videos after 30 days. So 2 weeks in a row now, I have gone live on Facebook and then uploaded it to YouTube so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. The only thing that I can say with that is I do a giveaway during my live chats on Facebook, and I don't do a live chat when I'm on YouTube because it's not the same. I can't post the links while I'm discussing them and things like that. So if you're on Facebook, join me. If you're not, no big deal. You can check out the replay on my YouTube videos. They're just not live on YouTube. Alrighty, so let's get to the 60-day list. He's checking it out. Normally he doesn't stay this close to me, so we're moving in the right direction here. So the 60 days are going to be some of your root crops. Those are going to be your beets, some varieties of radish, like the daikon radish is a much longer radish. It takes longer to mature. Leeks, turnips, again with the rutabagas, kale, broccoli. Like I said, the early cabbages, like the pak choi cabbage, is about 55 days. Dwarf pak choi cabbage is about 30 to 35 days. Some of the herbs, Swiss chard is not an herb, but it's also one. Collards are another one. As far as herbs, you've got cilantro, you've got basil, you've got chervil, a couple of faster maturing herbs, which are really good. I mentioned bunching onions already. I highly recommend, I'm loving these, by the way, the evergreen white bunching onions. It's a perennial onion, and it continues to just produce. And so I took a handful of them and I scattered them in a bed, and a year later I still have onions and I'm still harvesting them. And we've gone through heat, we've gone through cold, we've gone through sleet, we've gone through hail. Like I said, we had 100-degree weather yesterday and they were not drooping at all. So super excited about those. And then peas. So your garden peas, your English peas, your sugar snap peas, those are all fantastic, and they're about 60 days. Natasha says, chard has been wonderful for me. It's held out well through the heat. Absolutely. My Swiss chard has done really well over the heat as well. Hey, Shawnee, thanks for joining us. And now the last on my list is the 30 days. And the 30 days is going to be radish. You've got some easy, fast-growing radish that you can harvest in 30 days. And those are going to be your China rose radish, your Easter egger radish. Easter egger. Ha! Those are the kind of chickens I used to have. Easter egg radish, champion radish, cherry bell radish. There's so many radishes that you can do. Let's see. Asia says notes on screenshot. 60 days, some radishes. Oh, thank you very much for posting that for me. I appreciate it, Asia. So these are some of the amazing varieties that you can plant in your garden. Now, what if it's hot in your area? What if you are warm like me and you want to plant more heat-tolerant varieties? I have that information as well. So there's 2 places on my website that you can go to find heat-tolerant cool weather crops. And you might be thinking, well, that's kind of weird. But for example, I mentioned kale as a fall crop. Now, what if you live in Florida? What if you live in Texas? Or what if you live in, Asia Joe says, oh no, you're fine, you're fine. So this is all available on my website, and I broke it down. And if you missed this, here's what I'll do for you. I'm going to go into my notes when I get back in the house. I'll copy them all. And if you go to my YouTube channel and go into the post section, it'll all be written down there for you so that you can see it at a later time. That way, if you don't have a pen and paper handy, you don't have to necessarily watch the video all over again. Just go to the post section on my website, and I'll go ahead and reshare those right there for you. All right, so I was talking about heat-tolerant fall crops. Now, these are specific varieties that do better in warmer temperatures, even in fall. So, for example, lacinato kale is also called dino kale, and it's also called Nero de Toscana cabbage. So lacinato kale, dino kale, Nero de Toscana cabbage, they are all the same thing. That is a more heat tolerant kale variety than some of the other varieties. So just so you know, if you're looking for something to say grow in a warmer climate, those are fantastic for you. And so I have that on a list as well, because I know there's a lot of my customers that live in warmer climates, and I know there's a lot of you that live in cooler climates. So I even have faster maturing crops or faster maturing tomatoes, for example. So if you do have a shorter growing season, and maybe you don't have the time or the space or the equipment to grow tomatoes indoors, I have a list of varieties that mature faster, say Tiny Tim tomato or Moskvich tomato. Those varieties are a little more faster maturing than others. So those are some things that you can try out and see. Lettuce is one I didn't even mention because I'm saving that till the very last. Again, you have some varieties that are more heat tolerant than others. So if you're talking about greens as a whole, you're talking about Swiss chard, collards, kale, lettuce. Now, Swiss chard and collards are more heat tolerant than regular leaf lettuce. But then when you want to talk about leaf lettuce, you have some varieties that are more heat tolerant than others. And that would be something, for example, would be summer Bibb lettuce is more heat tolerant than some of the other Bibb varieties. Jericho lettuce is another one that is more heat tolerant than some of the other lettuce varieties. So lettuce can be harvested in as few as 30 days. If you want smaller, little, what we call baby greens, those are really good for 30 days. Good to go. You trim the top and then continue to let it grow. 60 days is generally where you're going to have more heads of lettuce or grown out leafy lettuce or ready to harvest romaine. So 60 days is the day for that. But they can also withstand a little bit of frost, a light frost, not a hard freeze necessarily, not snow necessarily, although my collards can withstand a pretty good hard freeze. My Swiss chard did pretty well in cool weather as well. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. Now, it is Saturday morning, and for those of you that missed the beginning, I started to reschedule my YouTube live chats from Thursday to Saturday morning because it's too hot to be in my garden. Today, however, I couldn't even go into my garden because it's raining. Can't complain about that. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Like I said before, in the description section of this video, you'll find a link to my comprehensive planting guide. You will also find links to different social media accounts that I have if you want to check those out and follow me. I do try to post a lot of helpful information as well. Generally, I post it to Facebook and then I reshare it to all the other things. I'm not on social media as much as some others. Hey, good morning. And usually my YouTube lives aren't super long because one, I don't want to be taking up all your day, and two, usually I'm doing something in the garden to share with you about what I'm doing. And then I wanted to update you as well on this was a live video I did, update you on two things. The patty pan squash challenge. Have you entered? Did you plant? Thank you so much. Esther's daughter says, love your planting guide. I posted on Facebook yesterday and I'll post it on my YouTube channel as well. Yesterday was day 32 from seed and I already have little blooms on my white scallop squash. If you don't know, white scallop squash is also called patty pan squash. All scallop squash varieties are also called patty pan. They come in yellow, they come in white, a green tint, white and green, a yellow. So there's a lot of different variations on those, and I found that the white scallop squash was the fastest maturing. So that was the one that I chose to plant for the challenge. And so I'm going to try and see. The earliest I've ever harvested them was 42 days. So we'll see this year how they do. And like I said, it was 100 degrees. The feels like temp yesterday was 114, and they were just up and excited to be in the sun. Apparently they were not droopy at all. But also I start most of these varieties, I would say 100% of my squash I direct sow, and so there's no transplant shock. They are used to this hot weather, hot weather. Bertha says, I've been learning so much from you. Good to hear. Nancy says, your tomato seeds have done incredibly well for me. Good to hear. I love that. And Melissa says, if you're growing cool weather crops in smaller containers, does that change how things grow? I would say not really. I would say if you are growing cool weather crops in small containers or just containers in general, it might be an advantage to you because you can put them in an area that may get partial shade if it's in the earlier time of the late summer. So maybe they get a little shade when it's super hot. Or maybe it would put you at a disadvantage if the container is too small. So definitely something to consider. If you are growing smaller lettuce varieties, for example, you can plant those in a 1 gallon or a 3 gallon. If you're growing larger greenery or larger like, hang on, let me do this really quick. I'm going to have to answer a bunch of questions. If you're growing larger things like Brussels sprouts or bulbing crops or root crops like beets, you want to give it a wider container and still give it a good 12 inches. So for those, I would do like a 25-gallon grow bag, for example. Tammy says, I didn't make the squash challenge, but I'm excited about the German custard. Very cool. Oops, sorry about that, guys. Natasha says, oh, should I start Brussels and cauliflower inside? So funny you asked that question because we just talked about that in the seed shop. And because a customer asked me the same question here in Texas. Now, it is completely up to you if you want to start Brussels sprouts and cauliflower inside. There are a couple trains of thought on that. One is because it's so hot out here, you can beat the bugs, hopefully, if you start them inside. And then there's the other part of, I don't have the space or I don't have the equipment to start them inside. Unless you have a grow light, I would not necessarily start them inside. And the reason for that is it's a great option to grow inside, but the plants get extremely leggy if they're grown in a sunny windowsill. If you want to start them in a sunny windowsill, that's totally fine. But in my experience, when I start seeds indoors in a sunny windowsill, when I say leggy, I mean your seedling is very long, your stem is very thin, and you only have just the teeniest top of green, and then they flop over. So if you have a grow light, the benefit to that is you have it close to your plant, and you will have a shorter plant that is producing a good root base, and you can raise that light up as it grows, but it's not going to have this long unhealthy stem. It's going to have a shorter, thicker, healthier stem with a really good root base. And so if you have the space to do that, then absolutely do it. I am going to direct sow a bunch of stuff this year, and I'm not going to start it indoors. I have a very small greenhouse that I might put just out here on the patio. I had planned on putting it out here, but then this guy showed up. And instead of putting a greenhouse, I'm talking about a little teeny one, just to give it some shade, to get some things started for fall. But Buster showed up, starving, injured, bloody, and we made him a place on our patio, and he has a little cat house for the summer, and that's where my greenhouse was going to go. So I had to move some stuff off the other side of the patio in order to give him a space, so that he has his space and that I have my space. So anyway, yes, you can definitely grow it inside if you have the proper equipment. Now, I'm not saying you can't grow it in a sunny windowsill. I'm saying that it would be healthier if you had a good grow light, and it doesn't have to be expensive. You can find them for $20, $40. You can even find them, get this, you can even find them at, like a large no-name big box hardware store in the light section. They make a little under the cabinet strip of LED grow lights, which are super cute. I think they were like $12. So that might be an option for you too. As long as you don't have indoor cats that might be eating them, that would be a solution for you. If you wanted something really inexpensive, a little teeny strip grow light under your kitchen cabinet would be super cool and super easy. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, you can definitely grow them inside, but you can also grow them outside. Natasha says, I've got the setup from spring. I may do some inside and some outside and see what happens. That's a good idea. I will be direct sowing a massive amount of onions this week because I love onions. Hey, you says I have 1,000-watt HPS grow light. Well, that would totally work. All right, I'm going to see if Buster will let me pick him up and put him on my lap. Nope, he won't. Hey, Teresa, thanks for joining me. All right, so I think that's it for my live chat. I didn't really have, like I said, I had planned on going live in my garden and planting seeds, but it's raining, and I'm really happy about that. Can you tell I'm happy about that? So I'm going to head off into the seed shop. I'm going to get some of your orders ready. Grow bags, we've already sold out half of our grow bags already, so that will be shipping some of those out this morning. Oh, good question before I go. Melissa says my seedlings die before they even get more than 2 leaves. Any suggestions? Fantastic question. Now here's something to look at. When your seedlings die, is it pinched off at the bottom, at the base of the soil? And then they look healthy one day and they're dropped off the next day. If that is the case, it is most likely something called damping off. Damping off is a soil-borne disease, a pathogen that kills your seedlings at the soil line. And so there's a couple things. Okay, so this is what it could be. There are a handful of things that you could do to help that. Now, once it's dead, there's nothing you can do about it. But in order to keep this from happening in the future, there's a couple things you can do. Now, first and foremost is sprinkle the top of your soil with cinnamon. Not a ton of cinnamon, just sprinkle it with the top of that with cinnamon. Cinnamon is an antibacterial, and it also is a natural rooting hormone, so it won't hurt your plants. It may actually help boost your growth of your seedling, and while it decreases the risk of pathogens killing your plant. The second one is add a fan. If you have good air circulation, you are less likely to develop mold and pathogens that will kill your seedlings. Now, this is for indoor growing. So if you're growing outside and this is happening, the cinnamon will really help. The last thing is, or the next thing is, if you're growing indoors or you're growing in containers and you have damping off, water your container at the bottom. So if you've got a seedling and then you have it in a container, you want to water the container and let the soil soak up the water instead of watering the top, and then you risk those pathogens. So if you're growing indoors, there you go. If you're growing indoors and you're experiencing damping off, which is when you've got this cute little seedling and it pinches off at the bottom and then drops dead the next day, that's most likely damping off. And those 3 things should be very, very helpful for you to have a more successful indoor grow. Lastly is using fresh soil. Melissa says I'm watering from the top. That could be the start of it. Absolutely, that could be. And lastly is using fresh seed starting soil instead of using outside soil, because sometimes you will have the pathogens from outside that you're bringing in. And I don't reuse. Asia's writing notes to yourself. That's awesome. No, that's very good. I'll add all this stuff to the note section, the post section on my Facebook or my YouTube page. Sorry. And so I don't reuse seed starting soil for seed starting. I don't throw it out in the trash. I take that seeds and I dump it out in the garden, or I dump it in my compost so I can reuse it at a later time. So that's a good one for you. Bertha says my tomato plants start getting yellow and don't have many tomatoes on it. Yep, and it's probably circulation and watering on the top. If you're using fresh soil, those are some really common things you can do to hopefully not have that happen in the future. All right, so if you have yellowing tomatoes, there's a couple of reasons why. It could be too much water. So in some cases, it's never always one thing. So with tomatoes, for example, it's either too much water, or it's not enough water, or it's a lack of nitrogen. You don't want to add too much nitrogen, because if you have too much nitrogen, you're going to have beautiful green trees of tomatoes and no fruits. It could also be a lack of calcium or magnesium in your plant that is not allowing nutrients to uptake into the plant. So like I said, there's a handful of things. You can feed your plants with a compost tea. If you don't have any, you can check out marysheirloomseeds.com. We have calcium and magnesium, which Asia had sent me some pictures of her garden, and her tomatoes look beautiful. These things are some of the most fantastic tomato plants I've ever seen. And she was concerned about those, but they look fantastic. So are grass cuttings good for covering the soil on raised beds to control weeds? I don't use grass cuttings because, number one, you might have weeds in those grass cuttings, and then I'm going to be adding weeds to my raised beds. And the second reason is because as those grass cuttings break down, they can be leaching nutrients from my soil and from my plants. If I'm going to use grass cuttings, I usually put them in my compost. That's not to say that you can't. It's just to say that I personally don't. I have been using cedar shavings this year, and I'm finding that the plants are fairly healthy. So I tried something new this year, totally off, not necessarily off topic, but I tried something new recently, and I want to share that with you. And I'll share some updates as I go along, because this is a first for me. I seasoned my garden, and it was such a random thing, and it was something I thought of, and I'm sure other people have done it before. I'm definitely not blazing a trail here, but I thought, well, if this works for this, and this works for this, what do I do? Sorry, let me answer that question again. So Bertha asked about her yellow leaves on her tomatoes. We have calcium and magnesium at Mary's Heirloom Seeds. We have compost tea. These all come in a powder, and then you add water to them, so it's just a packet that you use. We have kelp meal that you can add to water, and these are water soluble. So definitely check those out as well. So here's what I did to season my garden beds. And I did this before I planted squash, tomatoes, and okra recently. So this was a second planting. I pulled everything out of the garden beds, and everything in that garden bed had been healthy. So here's what I did. When I apply Mountain Flower Root Boost to my raised beds, sometimes it attracts ants. And so I wanted to figure out how to deter the ants, keep my plants healthy, and maybe even deter some other pests that might eat my garden, specifically bugs. So I bought organic cinnamon powder, organic turmeric powder, organic cayenne pepper powder, because there's no way I can produce enough cayenne pepper powder to do this. And then I bought cedar shavings. So I took first the cinnamon and sprinkled it over the raised bed. Then I did cinnamon over the raised bed. Then I did cayenne. No, not cayenne yet. Then I planted my seeds. Then I put cedar shavings down. And then I put cayenne over that. So this is a really weird, random experiment that I'm trying out. And so for the most part, all of these plants are super healthy. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is the answer, but I'm just experimenting with it. Because like I said, when I refresh a bed, I add Mountain Flower Root Boost, and I didn't want to add ants to my garden as well. And I also wanted to maybe promote healthier seedlings. And so I was hoping that adding the cinnamon and the turmeric would be really helpful for them. And then I was also hoping that the cedar shavings and the cayenne would help the pests stay away. And Melissa says, will the seeds come through the cedar shavings? And the answer to that is yes. So when I discussed planting seeds during the summer, that was a couple weeks ago here on my YouTube channel and live, I suggested that when you plant your seeds, you can plant them slightly deeper than you normally would because it's hot and your soil might be drying out faster. And so if you plant them slightly deeper, it possibly will stay moist longer to help assist in germination. But then mulching it is super helpful as well. So I didn't plant my seeds super deep. I just planted them the same depth that I normally would. Put down the cedar shavings and watered really, really well so that everything would stay. And the mulch really helps keep the moisture in. So all of these things I'm hoping will give me a better harvest, healthier plants. So I'll update you on how that works. Who knows? But I'm really hoping that this experiment works for me. And then I can share the updates with you guys as well. So thank you everybody for joining me. I didn't get Buster on my lap today, but you did get to see his tail and his head and running around. Krista says, could ants be eating my seeds? Yes, ma'am. Ants can eat your seeds. They can eat your plants. They, in general, when I see an ant infestation on my plants, it's usually there's aphids, but I have seen ants eat seeds and plants. So it's totally possible. Penny says, I use my banana leaves for my trees to mulch your raised beds. It works fantastic. Very cool. If I could grow bananas here in East Texas, I would, but it gets too cold to have healthy bananas. So Jenny says the rain here washed out most of your outdoor garden. So nice to look into fall planting. Yeah. And you had seeds that you won in a recent giveaway on, I believe, on one of my live chats. So you'll have more seeds for you. Let's see. Bertha says, thank you. Krista says, I've tried growing bananas. Yeah, it gets too cold where we are. For those of you that don't know, Krista is in not where I live in East Texas, but you're in East Texas. So it's definitely too cold here for us. Tammy says, I love the ideas of using cinnamon and turmeric. Should I compost the weeds or trash them? I actually watched a video the other day about someone who used the weeds to feed their plants. So what they did was they took you can use a 5-gallon bucket, you can use a barrel, you can use a plastic trash can, depending on how much weeds you have. And they literally put all of their weeds and their trimmings that were not diseased, and they put them in the bucket. They added water, and they let it sit for several days. And they said as it got stinkier, the better it was. And because it's fermenting, it's killing off the seeds. And then they use the water to feed their plants. So you can compost the weeds if you want, but they may actually take over your compost. What I do with my weeds is I gather them up and I put them all in one pile, and then they die off, and then they're essentially feeding trees and things like that, because they're breaking down in an area that is just a treed area, not my garden. Teresa says, is it possible to grow an apricot tree from seed? I have no idea, actually. I am not an expert on fruit trees. For fruit trees, I go to Sorelli Farms. They are my experts on all things fruit trees for our area. So I don't know. You can always try. I'm a big believer in trying it, even if I've never done it before. So you could definitely try. All right, everybody, that is it for me. If I didn't answer your questions, please send me an email. My email is mary@marysheirloomseeds, and I will answer your questions. Now I'm a little sticky. All right, so my email is mary@marysheirloomseeds.com. Check the description section of this video, and you can find lots of great information in my comprehensive planting guide, and you can watch the replay at a later time. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and happy planting.